The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't clone you, but it can streamline your hiring workflow. From posting jobs to shortlisting candidates to interviewing, LinkedIn Hiring Pro is the hiring partner you need, so you can focus on connecting with the right talent. In fact, small businesses report saving over 6 hours per week. So hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
And action! Hello and welcome to episode 399 of the Filmmakers Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk filmmaking from indie film to studio films to high-end TV to documentaries and everything in between. How to get them made, how to make them, and how to try not to royally F it up, in our very, very humble opinion. I'm Giles Alderson, I'm a writer, director and producer, and boy, did we have a great time in Cannes. Thank you everyone who came up and said hello during Cannes Film Festival along the Croisette at the Marche du Film. Dirty Boy screened and we got a couple of offers straight off the back for that film, which is quite incredible. It's the movie I produced, which stars Graham McTavish, Susie Porter and Stan Steinbichler, directed by Doug Rao. Great. I mean, wow. We got to screen at a gala screening in Cannes. Pretty special, and lots of interest on that film. So again, as I think I mentioned last week, I'll keep you informed. But Cannes was great. I had a lovely time. Really cool. Played in the annual soccer game, met some really cool people, talked about filmmaking, and was just in that bubble and that hubbub of things that feel more positive than they have done in the last couple of months, and that's what I feel the industry is moving towards at the moment. So thank you all who said hello and hello back, and thank you for listening for the podcast, and thank you for those who didn't know I did the podcast and went, I recognise your voice, or oh, Giles Alderson, the one who does the podcast. That was nice. Thank you. Really was nice, and the fact that it's inspired some people to go and turn up at Cannes, if nothing else, but also make their films. This is really cool. On today's show, we have the charming, wonderful, brilliant director, Oliver Krimpas. And we sit and talk about his rather fantastic indie film, Around the Sun, and how he got this film cinema released. We also talk about the importance of collabs, focusing on story, and why having a location first can make all the difference. We also talk about loss and mental health and casting, and why picking who is right is so important for your cast. Also, the value of having a casting director on board. We also dive into what it's like directing on set, the importance of editing, festivals and distribution, and why you shouldn't wait for permission. Welcome to the Filmmakers Podcast, everyone. Yeah, that's right. It's episode 399. Can you believe it? No, you probably don't give a shit. Regardless, we do. And that means next week's episode 400, Can you believe it? It's going to be a Business of Film special. Myself, Dom Lemoire, as well as Phil Hawkins, and special guest Stephen Follows are gonna sit down and chew the fat over 400 episodes and give some amazing inside tips and tricks on the industry today. What is happening? What happened at Cannes? What can move forward for your career? And that is why you should listen to our 400th episode. 400 of them! 5 years of this shit. 5 years of spouting crap into a microphone, hoping beyond hope that you get something from this and learn from the mistakes that we made and our guests made, and feel inspired that you can go out there and make your film too, which is why I wanted Oliver Krimpas on this episode. He is an inspiration for filmmakers out there. He went out and did it himself. It's what you can do on a modest budget with his film Around the Sun. It's about how sheer willpower can get your film made and seen, and why we want to talk about small films. It's great that we've had these Oscar winners on. It's great that we've had Rennie Harlin on, and Zack Schneider and Matthew Vaughn, just to name 3. in the last couple of months where we've been flying out these amazing guests, but it's really important to us and where we started and what we built up in this podcast. It's about indie filmmakers, and that is what Oliver has done with Around the Sun. This movie, fabulous. It is available around the world. That's a feat in itself. And like I say, it had a cinema release in Australia with Radioactive Pictures, who are the same distributors who have distributed my produced movie 3 Day Millionaire. Jess and the team at Radioactive, who I saw in Cannes literally a few days ago. But if you go to the website aroundthesunfilm.com, link to that will be in the show notes, where you can find this movie on Prime Video or Stan and Vimeo, like I've said, which if you buy it on Vimeo, money goes straight back to the filmmakers. So my suggestion would be to go watch it via Vimeo. Link to that is in the show notes, but also on the website aroundthesunfilm.com. The Guardian gave this 4 stars. San Francisco Chronicle called it elegant, romantic, gorgeous. The Austrian Chronicle called it exquisite. It's great. It is great. I'll come back to the story because we're going to play the trailer just before we get into the episode, but let me talk to you a little bit about Oliver Krimpas. He started off as an assistant to producer Jeremy Thomas, and he started working on productions like The Sheltering Sky and Naked Lunch, and then he produced and directed music videos and commercials and corporate films and short films. He made 4 brilliant shorts, which have been shown at more than 50 international film festivals. His latest, Ghost in the Machine, latest short, that garnered 10 awards. He's also directed episodes of Doctors as well. But Around the Sun is his first feature film, which he was also the editor on. He was also the producer, and he directed this movie. And I just want to let you know that you can do it too. So as always, be inspired by this episode. So this is the story of Bernard, played by Gethin Anthony. He's a film location scout, and he tours a repossessed and crumbling French chateau. Over the course of that afternoon, he slowly falls for both the place, the chateau, and its owner's flirtatious representative, Maggie, played by Cara Theobald, and she recounts the story of an influential popular science book written and set there. But is their present tense connection for real, or just a projection of the book's 17th century characters? Here's the trailer, and the other side of this, myself and Oliver Krimpas chew the fat all about making an indie film, how you can be inspired to do exactly the same thing on a very, very minimal budget and get out there, get it in cinemas and get it seen around the world. So sit back, relax, and have fun.
Bonjour. Maggie?
Hi.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
So, you're English?
And so are you. I must warn you, it's pretty run down.
Yes, that makes it a little more cinematic. You are indeed English.
And so are you. Is it just me, or does this feel really familiar? Now, I must warn you, it's pretty run down. But it's quite a sad story. Last occupied quite a few years ago by descendants of the owners from its halcyon days who couldn't afford to keep the place up anymore.
I suppose it always felt a little bit haunted.
What are you doing here, Bernard?
In my mind, I went through a few versions of how this could go.
In my mind, I ran through a few versions of how this could go.
So that makes you the enemy.
Maybe it's that you are a good boy, but you sort of hoped you'd come across otherwise.
I don't know why I'm teasing you. We've just met.
Should you get that?
Why don't I just turn it off?
Maybe there's a parallel universe where it worked out better for both of us.
And if there really are infinite stars, does that mean that any constellation you could possibly imagine, any little connect the dots you could make, must exist somewhere? All you need is the proper vantage point to see it from. In my mind, I was playing a little game. If only I could keep you here till sunset.
What would happen?
Hi.
Hello.
Hi,
Hey.
mate. How you doing?
I'm all right.
It's really nice to meet.
Really nice to meet you, Betty. Everyone thinks they can make a film, and they probably can, but it's the raising the money. No one thinks about post or deliverables, and that's the worst, as
No,
you
but
know.
that's a really good thing to touch on as well, because
Yeah, I mean, deliverables, Jesus.
Yeah.
That was an eye-opener.
With indie films, you don't really get much money. No one's really getting paid.
Yeah.
So unless you've got a full-time job, you're doing something else, you need to be paid. You've got to earn a living. And it's balancing that, and it's really tricky, I think. But
yeah, it is. I mean, that's another, I think, huge issue that all independent filmmakers have. In fact, I read an article in what was it, IndieWire, and they were asking all these guys at, I think, South by Southwest, how they live. How do you guys live when you're between films?
Yeah.
And, you know, some people had side jobs, some people had, you know, do you know the producer Nisha Party?
No, I don't. The name rings a bell.
Because she used to work for David Heyman, and then she set up on her own. And she basically set up a whole side business to subsidize her film habit because she wasn't making any money, and she knew she wouldn't for several years. So she had a side business, and then that kind of started pootling over, ticking over and making money.
Right.
And that way she basically didn't have to worry about making money out of films while she did all these little indie things. I thought it was just a very clever way of doing it if you can.
It's a really clever way of doing it. You've got to, I think, whether that's teaching filmmaking, whether that's having a hand in helping other productions, whether you're a first AD or you're easier, it's more likely you're going to get jobs, or you do commercials, or you do brand media. Those type of things can keep you with a roof over your head. But if it's just indie films, it's almost impossible. It's no wonder people make a film and then go, well, yeah, he comes out, and everyone goes, cool, that came out, no one made any money, and all the best for your next one. It's frightening. Yeah. It's really frightening, I think. There's no support in the UK for it. Even the BFI with their, wonderful schemes sometimes, after they've made their first film, they go, well, you've made one now, see you later. Yeah. And they go, well, hang on, wait, what? And I think there's a massive hole in the British filmmaking world right now, and the system we've got, where we're not supporting people who are actually doing it and making films.
Well, not in a consistent way. In a sort of, career building way, like they do in France as well. I mean, they start people off on shorts, and then if you show promise, they kind of, but then again, that's also, are you in with the in crowd?
Well, that's it. That's the problem with the European countries, is they have that conveyor belt. If you're on the conveyor belt, great. It might take you 3 years to get your film made, but you're on that conveyor belt. Whereas if you're not on the conveyor belt, you can't make a film. So there is something wonderful about what we make in the UK. It's just, there doesn't seem to be, I don't know, I feel something needs to change, and especially with distribution. Yeah. That no money comes back to the filmmakers. It's great the investors get their money back, fantastic. But the filmmakers, they're the ones who put years of their lives into this stuff, don't seem to get anything back. And that's the problem for me, I think. So we're here to talk about Around the Sun, which I really enjoyed. I thought it was really well made, really interesting, two-hander, apart from one scene or two, technically, because you did the same little bit twice.
Thank you. That's really kind. I
thought it was fantastic. I really did.
My main partner in crime on this film, who I have to shout out, is Jonathan Kiefer, who wrote the film.
Yes,
but also was very much. We were a two-headed monster on this film, and he was there every step of the way. He was on the shoot. He's been through, post-production and everything, he's based in San Francisco and California. We met years ago at film school in Boston. He was the lead actor in my thesis short film, and we stayed in touch after that. And then a few years later, we said we should make a movie together. And that's a long story, but that's how Around the Sun eventually happened.
I think it's so important to have a collaborator that you trust, that you love, that you care about, and they care about you. And it's so hard to find. It really is. You can, especially when you're starting out and you're trying to get stuff made, people pull in different directions. And it's so important to try and find those right people. And if it's not working, move on. But if you find someone you really like and you go, hey, why aren't we doing something together? Even if they live halfway across the world like you've done, it's like, well, actually, we want to do something together. But having that person in your corner fighting for you, and you do likewise, is unbelievable. So
it really is. It's essential. And I don't think I couldn't have done it without him. I mean, he wrote the script. He came up with the idea and wrote the script. So well, let's talk about it
because it's a two-hander. Now
it's a two-hander.
It's clever in a way because that saves a lot of costs, a lot of cast, but and it's great to be ambitious with your features sometimes, but actually people say, well, find one location and find a couple of actors and go for it and make it. When you've done that, you found quite incredible location, to be fair, and two wonderful actors. And you've gone, well, I'm gonna go do this. Was that always what you set out to do? To go, I'm gonna keep this low key?
It was definitely. It was to try and focus on a story rather than on production logistics, for sure. But to rewind back a little bit, John and I came up with an idea for a film. It was a sort of a kind of reunion comedy along the lines of Beautiful Girls or something like that. And he wrote a lovely script, and no one was interested. And we realized to do it, and it was going to be set in the Midwest in the US. And because of SAG rules and all of that, we realized it was going to be far more money than we could ever raise. So we tried to do it the traditional route, getting people involved. There was some nibbles, but it was a case of spending a lot of time not making a film.
Yes, a lot of time talking about making a film.
And then we said, okay, screw this. Let's try and make a film. And we're quite, John especially, because he's in the US and he's heavily invested in the US indie scene, and he's also a film journalist of some repute for years.
Right.
So he's seen everything. I mean, we're all film nerds in this business, right? Anyone who's a filmmaker is a film nerd. John has seen absolutely everything. And we were both interested in what the Mumblecore movement was doing, a little bit of Dogma, although Dogma was a bit of a cheat because actually they just shot on cheap cameras, but they had really big productions.
Big stars, yeah.
They big stars, big productions. But they shot on mini DV for some perverse reason. But the Mumblecore guys were like, okay, what have we got? What can we put in the basket easily? Okay, we've got, like the Duplass brothers. They had a van. They had a couple of actors they knew. They had $16,000, and they go, right, we're going to go on a road trip. And when the money runs out, that's the end of the movie. And one brother has the boom mic, the other has the camera. And if he's not, even in the scene, if they need another actor, one of them will jump in and put the camera on a tripod instead of having a handle. So we thought we're really inspired by that. But I also, not out of a sense of director's ego, although there is director's ego, let's be honest, always.
Sure.
But also in a sense that those films are great fun, but they are quite ragged. And I wanted to do something not so much because I can't bear the expression production value.
Right.
It's one of those silly terms. What does it mean?
Agree.
There's a lot of money kind of flashing on the screen.
Yeah.
Who cares about that? But what I do care is that good craft and good artistry on the film, on the screen, allows the audience to forget about all that, to forget about the cinematography and the sound. If it's bad, it just draws attention to itself. So I wanted to do something whereby you did that really stripped down crew, as small as possible, as cheap as possible, but that you also could kind of create something that really looked like a real movie. And I think in that we've succeeded, because people have said to me, this looks really good. Yeah. We had a great DP, but we cut every corner we could. So we hired a DP who had his own camera and lenses, and we used those.
Yeah.
They weren't the ideal lenses, but they were lovely. Yeah. And he was great, and he was resourceful, and he was happy to, do everything he could to make it as cinematic as possible. We got a run-in, we got an easy rig, so we could do lots of moving camera.
I do like an easy rig.
I bought and sold for exactly the same price.
Oh, well done.
So that was sort of a zero cost rental. But what inspired the movie was, we want to do this cheap movie. What's it going to be? And so we started spitballing some ideas, and we looked at things like Before Sunrise, which actually wasn't that low a budget movie, but we like the idea of, two-handers. I love Richard Linklater. So I love his kind of approach to things. And then a mate of mine, my oldest friend from school, and his girlfriend, who were living in Paris, and they couldn't afford a flat, but they could afford to buy a chateau because it was so dilapidated, and it cost less than the average one-bedroom flat in London.
Right.
And I went there and I was completely beguiled by the place. I mean, the light, the statuary, the gardens, and it was really dilapidated. And he said, come make a movie here. And I think I spent the whole day just taking photographs, like 1,000 photographs. And they were all good. No bad angles, like Christy Turlington. No bad angles. Looks good in anything. And, in fog, gorgeous, in sunlight, gorgeous, amazing. And wherever you pointed the camera, there was another lovely little kind of crumbling nook and cranny. And so I said, I called John, I downloaded a whole load of pictures, sent them to him. And he said, let's do something there. What'll it be? So he came up with various scenarios. And I was really, really hesitant to try and shoehorn a story into location because it sounded like it was a recipe for disaster, because it could seem very contrived. So he came up with some various ideas. One of them was sort of kind of before sunrise at a chateau. And I'm like, well, yeah, but how is it unique? How is it unique? And then he came up with another idea, which is a kind of Second World War thing about these German officers who were called Weinführers, who were tasked with finding hidden caches of old of wine cellars that all the northern Frenchies with big houses had hidden because they knew the Nazis wanted to plunder them. So the Nazis had these officers who were going, and I thought that actually could be something quite interesting for a future film. But I thought, no, period costumes,
cost money,
uniforms, money, too much money. And do we want that? Then John came up with one of the ideas that forms a subplot in the film about a tech guy going to turn this place into into a sort of corporate HQ in a slightly sinister way. And then another one about this location scout. And I said to him, these are all fun ideas, but they don't really grab me. And then in researching the history of this place, we found out about the book, Conversation on the Plurality of Worlds, that had been written there. And I knew about it vaguely. John really looked into it because he's that kind of guy who just researches things till there's nothing left to research. And he read the book and I read the book and it's very charming. And he said, I think there's something in this. And he sent me a 3-page outline of basically the movie that you've seen. And again, I was hesitant because I couldn't quite see it. And I said, can you make a feature-length movie of these guys just talking about this book? And he said, yeah, I can. And he bashed out a draft very quickly. And I said, yes, that's it.
Wow.
That's it. And I was, but I said it kind of, with my fist in my mouth because I thought, can I pull this off?
Yeah, because now you've got to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, but also conceptually, it could be the most pretentious film ever made. Right. Two people arsily talking about a book, from the 17th century and comparing it to their modern lives. I said, unless there's an absolute, snap, crackle and pop between these two characters, and there's a modern kind of attraction that we have to these people that's real in the modern day world, it's going to be really very boring and silly. It's just people talking. So, and then so that's where it all started.
Right. And from there,
and there were many stumbling blocks along the way.
I can imagine. So let's talk through those. So first of all, you're right. You've got your script. John's written this great script, and you've gone great. Well, I've got a location. That's the thing. Now, where'd you go from there? How'd you go? Okay, well, you've not, forget the cast for now. Maybe we'll come back to that. But in terms of actually getting it going, right, we need some money. We need to work out how we're getting there, logistics, all this kind of stuff. When are we shooting? Did you put a date on it first? Did you go, right, this is the date we're shooting? Or did you get the money first?
Well, it was funny because the script was ready. I think this was August 2015. Wow. So the clock was ticking to be able to shoot, because most of it's outside. We needed good weather and we needed days. Normandy has even, because of time difference, it has, very, very short days because it's south, but it's also further west of us. And it's got very, very short days in winter. So I knew that we really needed to start shooting by end of October. I didn't have a cent in the bank. I basically I did a 2-pronged thing. One was I sent the script out to a bunch of agents to see if I could get anyone interested.
Okay, cast first, right.
I didn't really know I thought, because at the time we were thinking of a really, really stripped down production. And we were thinking of, because this place was dilapidated, we were thinking of everybody gets a sleeping bag, we go down in a van, we get a DP, we get a sound person, actors do their own makeup, we'll cobble some costumes together, and we just kind of improv shoot it almost like a documentary. Right. That was where we were aiming at.
Got you.
Then suddenly a couple of quite big names got interested. And at the same time, I started putting together some money. So I think like a lot of us, I just put a little bit together from here, a little bit from there. I asked anyone basically who had a few bob to their name, whether they'd be interested. And if not them, did they know anyone? And often I think, they say, if you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money.
Yes.
So you say, do you know anyone who might be interested in this? And they go, I'll toss in $5,000. So I cobbled together probably enough to make it, but we got timed out. We just got timed out. There wasn't enough time to do it.
And sorry to interrupt. And on that, we, like you say, it's quite an important bit for our filmmakers of cobbling that kind of stuff together. And again, you're absolutely right. Did the right thing. You just asked people for some advice. Do you know someone who will invest? Perfect. What after they'd said yes? Had you set up the bank accounts? Was it a simple case of that money can go straight in, or was there any issues there? Talk us through that.
A good mate of mine, Daisy Alsop, who's a producer. I don't know if you know her. She basically gave me a mini seminar on SEISs, which unfortunately are no more, or at least not in their previous guide, but I'm sure you've used them, as we all have.
They are still there, but if you've made films already, it becomes much more difficult. Yes, and you have to go through companies, and it's
sort of for slates really now, isn't it?
Yes, it's slates, and it's tricky, and it's a slate starting off rather than a slate once you're established. But yes.
But if anyone doesn't know what those are, basically it was a way for small investment startups to attract money, attract risky money very, very tax effectively. So basically, the government matched your money. Essentially, you got a 50% tax break. One of the hardest things was convincing investors that this was a real thing.
Really?
Because I'd say to them, well, this is, if you put $5,000 into my film, it'll cost you $2,500. And they would just look at me and say, how is that even possible?
Yes, of course.
And I said, as long as you're paying $2,500 in taxes, you can give me $5,000, you'll get $2,500 at your next tax return, no questions asked. So 50% of your money is guaranteed. And then, of course, there's downside risk guarantees and all of that other stuff, which we won't get into because we're not accountants, we're filmmakers.
Yes, indeed.
So I set all that up. Started bringing the money in, but I didn't ask anyone to give me any money until I knew we were sure we were going to be filming. And so that established trust. We got some of these big names. It was getting to sort of mid-October, and I was just looking at sunrises and sunsets in Normandy, and I just thought it's not going to happen. So we put it on ice. We worked on the script over the winter, and then we aimed for the next summer. And things started going really smoothly. And at that point, the production morphed a little bit into something a little more sophisticated. So we decided to go for a crew and cast of that's where we established the model that we eventually shot. We decided to go for a crew and cast of about, I think it was 13 in total.
13 in total. Wow.
So 2 actors, me, John, 4 on camera and lighting, 1 sound guy who swung his own boom.
Wow.
A hair and makeup person who was also looked after costumes on set. Costume designer in London who put everything together.
Right.
Who else was there? A runner, production manager, stroke co-producer, stroke first AD. So he did all of that. And then someone who came in and catered.
Amazing. And interesting now, did you find that it's totally, because you've been on big sets as well, and you've done telly. And did you find that actually things could get done? It's not a slight on anything bigger. It's just sometimes that streamlined of something. It's like everyone knows what someone, even though if someone's doing 6 jobs or whatever, you do have the ability to go, okay, well, the camera's here. Let's just move it here. Or we don't have to move a whole unit because we're shooting that way after lunch. And we now need to turn around and move everyone who stood over there and the vans and the camera, turn it around. Did you feel you had that freedom?
There definitely was a nimbleness. But again, sometimes you wish, God, I wish I had another pair of hands here. Or especially for the camera crew that were really struggling sometimes, especially, because run-ins are very, very temperamental.
I hate them.
Constantly, readjusting them. We lost quite a bit of time there. But can I rewind a bit? Because what happened, we were aiming towards a shoot in summer 2016.
Yeah.
And what happened was about a week before the whole thing collapsed because my friends who had the chateau in France, in Normandy, they split up. And my friend was the guy, and the girl was so pissed off with him, the woman was so pissed off with him, that she said, no, I can't film here.
No.
And also I had another big issue, which I won't go into. And we had actors ready to go, not the actors who ended up in it, the two really good actors ready to go. And I just thought, I've got to pull the plug. I was getting so wound out and stressed out about this thing and just trying to push against an absolutely immovable object. And when they pulled the plug on the chateau, I was like, there's no way we can get another chateau in time.
No.
So the whole thing collapsed. I went into an absolute blue funk for a couple of months. My partner said, I don't think this thing is going to happen. And I sort of forgot about it for a couple of months. John was incredibly pissed off. I was pissed off at myself. I mean, you know what it's like when these things fall apart. And these things really, really do hurt. Because you're putting your heart and soul into it, and they really hurt. So then I said, well, I just couldn't forget about this film. I really, really have to make this film. And I don't just want to, I have to make this film. I love this story. I love these characters. I did a lot of the auditions reading in myself. So I was kind of,
you were there.
I was reading Bernard against Maggie's and Maggie's against Bernard's. And I just had to do it. So, I thought, okay, well, let me see if I can find any excuses not to make it. So I went around all the investors and they said, no, we're all in.
So no excuses there. Okay, damn, I've got the money.
There. Okay. It was sort of about building myself up mentally as well. Yeah. And then the next thing was the location, and I found another chateau, and actually quite quickly, and in the same period, and within 45 minutes of the original location.
Okay, so how did that happen? Because you don't live in France, you're not near there, and that's amazing, by the way. So how did you do? Did you just ask around? How did you find another chateau?
Well, what I know, actually, the French, is it the CNC, the French filmmaking body?
I'm not sure.
I think it's called the CNC, Centre National de Cinéma, or something like that. My French is a bit crap.
Yes.
But
sounds about right.
They have a database of buildings that you can film it, that people have put up for filming locations.
Okay, so filming location stuff.
So I went through that, and
but they cost.
Well, yes, I went through that, and I found this thing, and I thought, oh my God, it's
stunning.
It's like Darth Vader says in the Empire Strikes Back. That's it. That's the shield generator of the rebel base.
Yes, exactly.
So I gave him a call, and I started speaking my broken French, and the woman responded to me in perfect English. Turns out she was English, married to the owner of the chateau. Right. And they just serendipity is so important in this business, right? And I say this sounding sage. This is my first movie, so I know nothing, but these are the things I've learned on the way. But serendipity, gosh, when it works, doesn't it? And they happened to be in London the following week, and we met up. And I said, look, from the get-go, I really don't have much money for this. I'd originally planned on not spending anything on the location. Yeah. And they said, well, look, if we've got a gîte, which is a kind of holiday cottage on the ground. And I said, well, we need accommodation. She said, well, if you rent that, it's off season because it's going to be October. Then we can if you rent that and you toss a little bit of money for us. And we rented 2 rooms in the chateau as well, because that's where the actors stayed. So that was really nice for them because their walk to set was downstairs.
Beautiful. Love those days.
I also rented 3 rooms because hair and makeup was next to them. So that was all really self-contained. And I had my producer's hat on there thinking, how could this work? And then in the gîte, we had all the other main crew and a really, really big room with a huge table where we could all eat. So that cut down on costs of that. And the catering woman that I'd lined up, who's this amazing chef who just lived locally, she was able to come to the new location because she was close enough, and it all sort of fell together.
So no excuses, like you say.
No excuses. I had the money, I had the location, and then it was just a case of getting cast, and that was difficult. That was really difficult. Initially, I tried to do it myself, and then at that point, I realized actually I need a casting director.
Yeah, when it's really it's indie film, it's low budget, it can become, even though you already got cast before, sometimes then when you're going back in and you're not paying them much, if very little, it can be very difficult to get through the gatekeepers, and sometimes that casting director can just get you through. And I see that you'd used Daisy and David Leon's casting director as well, Vicky Thompson.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, because they did Orthodox together. Yes.
Anyone needs a good casting director, hit up Vicky. She's great.
There you go.
And she was really game. She got it. She got the script. You know when things are going well, when people read the script and respond to you in either hours or a day. And she came back and said, "Yeah, I love this." And then there was this funny sort of paradox that it's only 2 actors. You only need to cast 2 people. But when you've only got 2 people on screen, it's got to be really good. It's got to be perfect, and
their chemistry needs to work.
Finding that relationship was very difficult, and unfortunately, the 2 actors I'd had the previous year couldn't do it, as fate would have it, and so I started from scratch. And then Cara was the first of the 2 I found, and she did an amazing self-tape, and I just looked at this self-tape and I said, "Oh my God, that's Maggie." And we couldn't find a guy for her until very late in the day. And then we found Gethin, and it turned out they knew each other, and they'd known each other from drama school, and they had that built-in relationship.
Oh, wow.
And so Gethin came on very, very late in the day, and we kept pushing it to find someone. I'd found someone, because I really wanted to make the film, I'd found someone else who was good and a really interesting actor, but not necessarily, I'm not sure if I should say this, but not necessarily perfect for it. But I thought, either I'd go with this guy, or we have to stop for another year, because we'll be, at this point we're getting towards autumn again. And we wanted autumn because the place is incredibly beautiful in autumn. The sun's very low, so you get that really lovely kind of buttery sunlight. And I knew that was really important for the film, for the chateau to look alive in that way. And we didn't want midsummer kind of, harsh shadows and all that, because we didn't have money for silks and all that malarkey. So Gethin came on very late in the day. He was, he was really worried about learning all the dialogue. And I said, "Don't worry, we'll shoot in sequence as much as possible." And he was a real trooper, and he just jumped in. I
love it, because they're both names as well. It's incredible, especially because you're selling a movie, and you're selling an indie movie eventually after you've shot it, and everyone always asks you. You go to Cannes, you go anywhere, who's in it? And if they don't know who they are, they go, "Well, it's no good." Whereas you'd pick 2 actors, or you found 2 actors, or they found you, however your wonderful casting director Vicky Thompson did. And suddenly you've got 2 actors who are on the up, big stars, they're big telly stars, etc., etc. And that must have helped massively, I imagine, for selling the movie. I know we've jumped massively to that point right now, but right? Were you not thinking that at the time?
And it's not to denigrate Cara and Gethin, or to belittle their profile, which is significant in the business. But actually, no. And I think again, I think something you've discussed on previous podcasts, I think the idea of names in this business opening doors, unless they are absolute. With Gethin, as soon as I said Game of Thrones, they're like, "Oh, ears perked up." And I said, "Oh, it's Renly on Game of Thrones." "Oh, yeah, I remember him. He was in 2 seasons, blah, blah, blah." And Cara also from Downton Abbey, because that was her most high profile role at the time. So, "Oh, yes, she was the maid. Yes, I know who she is." So that was a good way in.
Sure.
Because they weren't nobodies.
No.
But in the industry as a whole, and you would have thought these people would know everyone, a lot of people didn't know them, or didn't know them
by name. Yeah,
by name. It was sort of, "Oh, yes, I know that person." Or when I showed them a picture.
Yeah, and showed them a picture and said, "Oh, that person from that." Yeah, I don't know. I think unless you've got Jude Law or Johnny Depp, I think there's not many who tick that box. I think a lot of sales and distributors will always say, we want names. But actually, the likelihood of you getting a name in an indie film that means anything to them, selling-wise, especially these days, is really tough. But in terms of what you'd achieved with 2 well-established names who I know who they are, and a lot of people in the industry know who they are, it's a real achievement, because it's an indie film, and you've got 2, like you say, they're not nobodies, and that makes a difference.
Well, a lot of people responded to the script. I got some people, calling me with some really quite big names, that not Tom Cruise names, not even Jude Law names, but, people that everyone certainly in the industry would know immediately. But they weren't right. So I thought, it's no good making a film where you kind of get a little bit star-fucked and then you cast people who are a little bit off. Wonderful actors in their own right. I mean, I won't say that, anything against them, but they weren't right for these parts. And I knew that. And I really, really thought, and this was something actually that John and I discussed at the beginning. We said, let's make a film where we don't have to ask anyone permission. So the money comes from people who know and trust us, or friends of friends of friends, who just kind of all said, just get on, make your film. Don't worry about us, make your film. They'd seen some shorts I'd made. And so we didn't have to ask, obviously we had to ask permission. We were going to do everything we could to make their money back and make a profit. But we didn't have one big body breathing down our neck saying, oh, we've got to cut to 2 days off the schedule. And I really don't like this. And we had none of that. But so in that ethos of not having to ask permission, it was like, let's make this film that we'll probably never be able to make again, because our next one will probably want more money and we'll probably be a bit more constrained by what we can do. We can do something really out there, ideally quite original. And if it fails, it fails big, but we're punting big on something a bit different, and I think if anyone's responded to it, they've responded to the fact that it is something that it is quite different from anything that's out there, especially when we're at festivals.
Yeah, it really is.
For good or ill. I mean, it's not for everyone. And that's the other thing, is we can make a film that isn't for everyone. We don't have to think, we have to think about what would we like to see? Are there enough people out there who would also like to see this for it to make some money? It doesn't need to make millions. And so that was really freeing. And so in that ethos as well, it was that let's get the right actors, let's get the very best actors, whoever they are, high profile, low profile. But it is quite seductive thinking that, some bigger name actors are interested in your film. It's a little bit like,
of course, it feels great.
Dating someone who's far better looking than you think you'll ever be able to date, something like that, when you're a kid and you go, oh, really? They're interested in me. Ooh, yeah.
Even though they might not be right for you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. They'll break your heart the second.
Yes, exactly. Totally break your heart. So let's talk about on set then. Like I say, a very small crew here.
Very small crew.
And 2 actors. Talk us through your process. Did you rehearse? Obviously, you didn't have much time with Gethin either, but
we did. We did rehearse.
You did rehearse. Talk us through that. Yeah.
Well, as you know, the closer you get to production, the less time you have to rehearse because you've got all these tangential things coming at you like shrapnel. But I said there were 3 days in London where I said sacrosanct from 10 a.m. to I think 4 p.m. I'm just with the actors. And then I had half an hour at lunchtime to go and field calls that were essential about something. So we did that. And we just broke down the script and we, turned it inside out and upside down. And then we had, I went down a couple of days early with the actors and we rehearsed things on location. Because I hadn't necessarily picked, that was the nice thing about it. As you said, you can turn the camera around. I hadn't necessarily picked locations for everything, but we were able to do some of the blocking in those, unpressured blocking. And I was with my iPhone just wandering around, doing a bit of rehearsal on set. And so we were able to get quite a lot of stuff that you could waste a lot of time on the day sorted out. So it wasn't a huge amount of rehearsal, but it was helpful. And then we did, production-wise, we also doubled up on lots of other things. So we got Peugeot to donate 2 cars for the duration of the shoot.
Very good.
And then they're the camera cars. They're in shot.
Yeah,
but they also were transport down. So I drove one with the actors and John, who flew over from the US to London, and we went through the Eurotunnel, and then we had another car doing that. So we saved a huge amount on transportation. So it was all of these little tricks to try and shave things unnecessary things off the budget.
Yes, that are just there. And actually, if there's any way you can save anything on a budget on an indie film, you have to work out ways to do it. Even if that's you cooking the pasta the night before or whatever. It's just you just have to get on with it and do it.
Well, we didn't have production design. We didn't have any. So but this place, this chateau had just the most incredible amounts of lovely old junk everywhere.
Yeah, I was full of amazing production design. The whole thing, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, so sometimes we took stuff away because it looked because the place that we ended up shooting in was in a much better state than the original location. So we had to actually dress it down a bit.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that did make more sense to me now. Yes.
John and I, mainly John, but also me, we would be dressing sets the night before after we wrapped. And I'd secured all the key props. We put them in a big box, took them down. Right. So John was doing, as well as being right-hand man, he was doing continuity and props and art direction. And then, so everyone was doubling up. And
in terms of working with the actors then on set and those moments, obviously rehearsal stuff, but when you're on set and you've got the camera up and you're wanting those little moments, anything that worked or didn't work during that time where you thought, oh, that was a magical moment, or I wish I'd done that?
Gosh, I mean, that's the $64,000 question. I can't really tell you of a specific thing because I think, firstly, every actor is very different, as you know, and you have to, I think the most important thing is learning their language, what they need, as early as possible in the process. And I found that on shorts. So I was aware of that. And because Cara had been part of had been cast quite a lot earlier on, and she was a real trooper. She'd read in with a lot of people. And so in the process of doing that, I was able to, it was sort of, soft rehearsal really, because she was able to really, really get under the skin of Maggie. And while we were waiting for another actor to come, she'd ask me stuff about the script. As a result, when we got to set, she also has an incredible memory for dialogue. So by the time we got to France, she was word perfect on pretty much the whole script.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
And yeah, I mean, she really does. Like when we were doing ADR, she didn't have to have the script in front of her for some things. And this was nearly a year later. So,
wow.
So that was really helpful. But also she, as well as I think more than any other actress that I'd auditioned, she got Maggie so well. And then, but also she brought things to Maggie that I hadn't really thought of. And I'm like, oh, that, and that, and that, And so I think with Cara, the direction was much more nudging. With Gethin, because it was such a steep learning curve for him, there was a lot more discussion. And there's two sides to Gethin. He's very, very intuitive on the one hand, but also very intellectual. And so he loves unpicking things. And often I found with Gethin, often he likes talking about something that isn't what is important to him, but he has to kind of talk his way into something or discuss his way into something. And then it kind of unlocks something that is unconscious, but makes the scene work. I don't know if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, it does.
So that was really fun getting to know them. And actually, in terms of acting, there's a very long sequence in the attic, where it starts drunken and then has a big twist at the end.
Yes.
So that was a bit of a monster of a scene. And I cut it as well. So it was the hardest one to cut. And as I was editing, my kind of niggling, and this is the thing, if you have a niggling concern at script stage, it will always be amplified later on and you have to fix it. So try and fix it at script stage. I suppose isn't that, have you found that?
Yeah.
Any little thing where you go, oh, no, that'll be right. I'll be right.
Yeah, it never is. It never is. And I'm so glad you brought that up. Editing is such a wonderful part of the filmmaking process. And you learn so much as a director, as an actor, if you sit in if you get a chance, any filmmakers out there to sit in and edit, you just go, well, why did they do that shot? Why would you use that? Why that performance? Why? And you see how you can shape a performance. You can shape the whole film in the edit. And by learning, by going and watching and listening and understanding why, certainly for actors, why we won't use certain takes. You know, it's too big, too this, doesn't fit, no continuity. It makes it all, I always find this, everyone goes, oh, let's just do one for fun at the end. And everyone does that fun take and everyone goes, that was an amazing take. The actors nailed it. It was brilliant. You come to the edit, you can't use any of it because it just doesn't match the tone, the feel. It just worked in that moment. There's a small moment and everyone nailed it. The camera's brilliant. The actors were brilliant, but that doesn't mean it necessarily works every time in the edit. What else did you learn in the edit? Because you edited it as well as your assistant.
Oh, there was a big thing I was about to say, actually, a really big thing. So I put the film together. It was, roughly as we'd scripted it, roughly as we'd shot it, trimmed a few things, but, tweaked and so on. Mm-hmm. And the first cut, I showed it to a bunch of people and it just wasn't working.
Why? What was it?
I think it was because that first sequence, so chapter 1, so people who haven't seen it, it's chapterized. It's set in five different chapters. Chapter 1, I felt if I could keep people's interest keep the audience with me long enough, just in these characters that they were quirky and fascinating, if I could do that until that first point where there is the twist, where you realize that the structure of the film is very different from what you expected, mm-hmm. then I'll have them. They'll stay with me till the end of the film. But the niggle that I had was it too long before that happened? So initially, chapter 1 was a lot longer.
Got you. Yeah.
Or at least a lot longer till that point. And here's another thing I'm always going to do is I'm going to screen my film for screenwriter friends.
Yes.
Because a screenwriter friend came up with the fix. And he suggested breaking chapter 1 into 2, breaking chapter 1 and chapter 2 into 2 and interleaving them.
Wow.
Now we're there. And then we, spent a lot of time tweaking and
fitting it into a square peg in a round hole type thing at times.
Well, no, it actually worked.
Oh, we did? No problems. Okay. Because I remember having big issues on the Dare when we just restructured the whole thing. And we'll instead of telling all the downstairs basement stuff in one go, we'll mix it with the farmer stuff. And we'll just, and that meant continuity was wrong downstairs, but in the basement. And it was just all those things that it just took weeks. So I'm glad yours was quick, but I'm glad we did it. But it was, editing is just a wonderful time. It's horrible, but it's also wonderful.
It was a revelation to me that you could do one significant edit and completely change the way the film played. Yeah. And actually that the film then became true to what we were trying to do. Mm-hmm. In a perverse way. You had to sort of break it to make it work.
Yeah, well, that's what Macquarie says as well, wasn't it? On the episode, he was talking about that. He said there was one bit in a scene that just wasn't working. Everyone hated the scene, get rid of it. Change one line or one little cut and suddenly everyone loved the scene. And you're like, wow. That's the power of understanding storytelling, and it takes a long time to get there. And don't we, I think sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves to be the best or win an Oscar or win, and it's like, well, hang on, just we're doing our best. We're trying to find a way to make this work. And it's really difficult filmmaking. But I think you've done a great job.
I spotted things in the editing room I hadn't noticed on set, little nuances, little bits of business. You go, I'll have that and that, and it unlocks things that you couldn't have imagined.
Yeah, little lean-ins I noticed as well. There was a little lean-in. You think, okay, was something going to happen there? Was that a moment where they get together or not? Or was this going to... And it was just these little moments of body movement. Everything was done subtly, which is quite beautiful, really.
Yeah.
And the ending sort of makes you realize why. No, it's great. It's a great movie. It's really great.
I mean, one of the things I learned is that I probably, director's OCD, right? You want to do everything yourself. You think, and I've always enjoyed editing, and I've edited most of my shorts or co-edited. So I had a little bit of experience, but I've never edited a feature film before. But we didn't have any money. I mean, that was another thing we did, in terms of the not asking for permission. We didn't want to wait till we had all the money for post. It was like, we've got just enough to shoot it. Let's shoot it. Once we shoot it, we've got a film. Mm-hmm. Then we'll make it work.
Right.
So that was, I think, a good, bold step to do, because we could have scuppered the whole thing, having enough, trying to get enough money for post and for also the significant cost of traipsing around festivals.
Yes. And it's interesting that I think There's two mindsets to that. It's either get all the money, go do it, then you can make your movie. And some people don't like the idea of going to shoot your movie when you've only got enough to shoot the movie. I'm like, go shoot your movie. I've always been this way. Look, if you've got a chance to shoot a movie, go do it. You'll find money for post. You'll just make it work because you just will. If you want to, if you feel you care enough about your project, you'll get it done. Whereas if you haven't shot anything, it's much harder. You haven't got anything to do.
But one of the toughest things in post is getting an editor who'll stick with it for as long as you want them to stick with it. Because you can get an editor for a month who'll bash out, who may be great, but they're going to have to make more money than you can pay them, and they're going to have to go off on something else. And then you're left with a film that you haven't edited, so you're not as intimately involved with it as if you had, but it's also not where it needs to be. So I decided, screw it, I'll just do it myself.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed it. I'm sure it would have been a much better film if I hadn't, but at least I had time.
Yeah.
And then Patrick, who started off as the guy, he was one of our camera assistants, and he said he's really good with tech, so he did all the syncing of the rushes and stuff.
Right. Okay.
And then I said, he asked me, he said, listen, I've never seen anyone cut a feature before. I said, well, I've never cut a feature before, so you're not going to learn much. He said, well, I'd love to sit in on you cutting. And after a while I said, well, do you want to start cutting something? Do you want to at least assemble a couple of sequences? He's like, yeah, definitely. And he ended up assembling a whole chapter.
Yeah.
And he did a really good job. And I was like, okay, well, but then also he came up with some really good ideas for the stuff I'd edited. And so I sort of made him a co-editor because I felt that he'd made significant enough impact to deserve that. And, he'd not got any extra money for it. So, and he was brilliant. So I'm really, really grateful to Patrick.
Let's just jump to, delivering the film and getting a distributor on board and a sales agent and doing festivals. Did you do festivals first? Did you start to put it in festivals? Was that always your route?
Yeah, it was. And, that's tough because, when you make a drama film, as opposed to a genre film, I think festivals are so much more important.
Yeah. Because
it's this very, very, very narrow funnel that you have to go through to get the visibility to get a distributor. And we got frustratingly close to getting into some quite big, I'm sure every filmmaker has this problem. I remember Daisy telling me about this, we nearly got into that festival. We nearly got into but we really did. I mean, we were given fee waivers for some really big festivals, which was because they'd heard about it. And we got very close and shortlisted, but didn't quite go down the aisle with those festivals. And it was frustrating. So it was getting on a bit. And we ended up debuting at a really fantastic festival, but not necessarily as high a profile a festival as you'd want, Cleveland. And they treated us really well. And we all went out there. We had a great time. And it went down really well, full screenings. And actually we met quite a few programmers at Cleveland who picked it up for a lot of other American festivals. And then there was a really big festival that wanted to take it on, even though it wasn't a debut. But we just didn't quite get into it. And I John, because he was embedded in the US scene, was focusing on the US ones, and I was focusing on the European ones. And again, we got some really amazing nibbles, but it never quite to those big ones. So it was much more difficult to get the film distributed. So we ended up going, and then, we had various options. Then the pandemic came. So we distributed through a distributor stroke aggregator called Giant Pictures in the US. And they did our digital release, and we did as much marketing as we could. And it did pretty well. I mean, it was sort of in, on the various iTunes lists, it was pretty high up there for a while. We didn't make a huge amount of money, but it had a good first run. And then I think the one thing I've really learned from this process is that you have to get a sales agent on very early. And that's something I just didn't know enough about.
When you say early, what do you think, where are you thinking is early? Before festivals or earlier than that?
I try and get one on at script stage if you can. If you've got a script that's strong enough, and if you've got a script that can attract namey enough names for sales agents for sales agents' ears to perk up, and that's that's an ask. Mm-hmm. It is an ask. But if you can do that, I'd say get them on as early as possible, because they're just really good, especially with I'm talking about drama films. That's my own experience. But with drama, and now having spoken to a lot of sales agents and a lot of distributors and really built up that knowledge that I didn't have at all before I embarked on this, I think they're very good at getting your film into a festival. They just have contacts. They have the ability to tap people on the shoulder that you don't, if it's the right sales agent. But I mean, there are a lot of very, very dangerous and predatory sales agents out there.
Yep.
Even some of the ones that are ostensibly very, very credible.
Yep, absolutely.
I've heard horror stories of people just not being paid a cent and seeing that the film's being sold left, right, and centre.
It's about that is about your contracts and making sure you understand what you're signing. And a lot of people just sign away stuff that they haven't really thought about, and that's sad, because sometimes you've got to pay for a lawyer, or you've got to spend a lot of time understanding these contracts, and it's not easy. They're not made to be easy. They're made to, it's a business, and sadly that's where a lot of people get burnt. But the distributors or sales agents are going, well, we haven't done anything wrong, you signed it. And I think it's unfair sometimes. I think it's totally unfair.
But even beyond that, I know people who've signed contracts and they've been very careful about what they've signed, and people just haven't been paid.
Yeah,
they just haven't been paid. And people have pocketed the money, and it's been in a jurisdiction outside. If they're UK-based filmmakers, it's been in a country, the sales agent's been in a country outside the UK. They know the ins and outs of the legal system. And they know it's almost impossible for a UK filmmaker to sue them and get any money back. So they just take the money and run.
Yeah.
But to flip that, we found this wonderful sales agent, a small sales agent in the UK called Indigo, who have been very diligently selling our film around the world. And they're the ones who set up the Australian deal.
Amazing.
And they're selling it, here and there for bits and pieces. And we're looking to hopefully break even soon. I mean, a lot will depend on the Australian release, but we're getting more nibbles based on that and the extra publicity. I mean, fingers crossed, break even quite soon, which I think for a film like this is quite good.
It's incredible. For any independent film to break even is an incredible achievement. So,
and then even make a few pennies for all the wonderful people who invested.
Yeah, yeah.
And the great thing is that they've all said they want to fold, that once we do break even, they want to fold their investment into the next film.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, I can't wait to see what you do next. That's very, very exciting. AroundTheSunFilm.com, you can see all the information about where you can watch this movie. Links to that will be in the show notes as well. But do support, as I've always said, support indie films, support people who come on and talk about their challenges and give you free advice. So yeah, go support. It doesn't take much to do it. And then write a great review on IMDb and on Amazon and wherever else. It's important to do that. Very much so.
Yes, please.
I also really like that you called your production company Execution Dependent Films, because I think, as you mentioned earlier, you were kind of like, well, it depends if the film's any good. How is it going to be perceived? And it's so true with indie films all the time. Execution Dependent is a great title.
Well, that was a joke, because John and I were talking about these ideas, and I'm like, well, it's a good idea, but it's not an idea that's sort of pops in a log line.
Yeah.
And he was saying, well, it really is very execution dependent, that idea. And then, and he told me, he'd give me an idea for a film. And I'm like, well, yeah, it'd be good, but we've got to get it right. It's really execution dependent. This thing kicked around. And then when it came to picking a title for the company, I thought, well, what better?
What better? Yeah.
It gets a few chuckles, people who notice at screenings.
That's brilliant. And finally, I suppose just that something that you wouldn't do again, or something you would do again, something you've really, I suppose it's advice for all those smart, hardworking people out there who are listening, who are trying to get their films made. What's something that, even though we've touched on so many things, that you would go, yeah, that.
Would do again. Don't underestimate the value of a good casting director, which I think is often underestimated. Trust your gut, because if you're going to succeed, I think if you're going to do anything worthwhile, it's got to come from within. So trust your gut, but on a macro level, but also on a micro level, trust your gut on if something doesn't feel right in the script or when you're shooting, it probably isn't working. Work with the best actors you possibly can, because nothing's more important. And obviously be ambitious, but also, try to set up, especially if you're starting out. Let's say if you're starting out or doing your first film or second film, don't wait for people to give you permission. But, go out there, get some money, make a film within the means that you have, and then you'll make another one. And if you can't get that much money, trim your ambition to the money you can get and go make a film, or just make a few more shorts just to you've got to keep the muscles flexed. Keep filming, keep shooting, you get better. I mean, 1 second on set is worth, half a lifetime thinking about making a film or reading books about it or watching films and thinking, what you do. 10 minutes on set, it's invaluable. I mean, there's just no other way to get better as a filmmaker. Oh, and then the other thing, I know this is a bit of an old saw, but don't be afraid to fail. Because unless you put yourself in a position to fail, either over the course of a whole film or in an individual scene or sequence, then you're not pushing yourself enough to do something good and original. It means you're playing it safe, and it will, something that if you play it safe, you'll never get anything that isn't, better than mediocre. So you've got to be ready to fail.
Love it.
And the idea is that you don't fail in such a significant way that you have to toss the whole thing out. But there are sequences that we shot that I've had to throw out because they were overly ambitious. There was more of the period stuff, and it just didn't work. So we had to toss it.
See, there you go. I love that. Yeah, don't be afraid to fail. It's true, because that just means you're getting on with it. You're doing it. And actually, by those little failures just make you more successful, because you go, well, I'm not doing that next time. Oh, I've got to do this. And that's okay. It's okay. This has been brilliant. Oliver Krimpass, thank you so much for your time chatting to us. It's been great.
Charles, thank you so much for having me on. It's been really fun to talk about it.
Absolutely. You can go out there and make your film. You can find a French chateau. You can find actors, get the best people around you, and go out there and make your film. Don't wait for permission, just as Oliver has done, and go watch Around the Sun. And next week is our 400th episode. 400 episodes. So come join us for this big celebration as we celebrate 400 damn fine episodes of filmmaking tips and tricks for you. Listen, this is the time. If you haven't already, go on to our iTunes and give this a 5-star review. Literal review. Right, this is ace. Right, thank you. Right, anything you like, just do review, please. It does make a difference. We want to slide back up those charts, because that helps us get even more guests and helps me actually keep wanting to do this. It's 400 episodes. Yeah? So just do that for me, and definitely click the plus button on your podcast device of choice now, so you get it in your inbox first as well. And then, hey, if you can write a review on there as well, or click 5 stars, please do, because that's worth doing 399 episodes for, I'd say. But I don't know. You might just listen to this just to hate it. You might literally go, fuck, I really hate this podcast, but I'm going to listen just to show my annoyance and anger. But that's great if it makes you go make your film. I don't give a shit. Think what you like about me. Don't care. I do actually, but I don't care right now as I'm saying this, because I want you to go do it. It's funny, someone in Cannes said that, yeah, you're always inspiring others, but does that not get in the way of you making your films if they're doing well? No, there's space for everyone. That's what I believe. And if you are getting in my way, get the fuck out of it. No, just literally remember, if you're doing really well and you're rising up, it's your duty to send the elevator back down. And that could be to me. And that's okay too. I will accept it. I'll accept your gift. And I will come make films with you too. But for now, have a great week, whatever you're doing, and go out there. Be inspired by Oliver Krimpass's story and go make your film or TV series or documentary or whatever else the hell you want to make as well. Take care, everyone. Thanks, Oliver.
Thanks, Charles.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.